All right. Welcome to episode 144 of Live Drawing. I'm your weekly drawing person, and I am Ian Chase Nichols, and welcome to the show. Tonight I'm going to be working on my Undersea Hero comic still. It's the page we were working on last week. With the conventions and then the other stuff, I haven't had time to get too much further. I did some work. I worked on some of the characters. I finished the hand lettering at the top there. I added some different more figures. I started inking these panels down here. This is the introduction of a character called the Harbor Master. And yeah, we're just chipping away. And I'm coming off of doing a couple of events this past weekend. One was Free Comic Book Day, which I hope everyone got a chance to go out and celebrate and pick up some free comics and hopefully buy some comics too. Hello, Bakersfield. Good to see you, Ethan. Hope everything is good with you. This was one of my purchases from the library convention. It was a sketch of Man-Thing by Joe Daxberger. He's a Massachusetts-based artist. I've seen him around at shows over the years. This is the first piece I bought from him. He had a bin of these from Sketchtober. It was only $20, so you can probably hit him up on Facebook. He had a bunch of really good ones. It was hard to narrow it down, but I love a good swamp monster, so happy to add that to my collection. Free Comic Day, I bought a fair amount of stuff, but here's the poster from, it's the program from Cod Con. This was the show that I did on Sunday. It was at the Hyannis Public Library and the Cordial Eye Gallery. You can see that there were two buildings. One was across the street. There was a list of artists. Yeah. Trad Moore was there, the artist on Silver Surfer Black, and Dr. Strange. Jesse Lundberg. Like I said, Joe was there too, Joe Daxberger. C.R. Florence was kind enough to invite me out there, and it was a lot of fun. I got to meet some of the staff there, Rebecca and the other folks at the library. But we'll start drawing, and I'll keep showing off stuff throughout. I picked up some books. I picked up some artwork. I showed you the art, but I got a great deal on an art book I'll show a little later. Yeah. I tell you, I am tired doing a weekend of events and then going right back into work takes it out of me a little bit more than it used to. We'll zoom in some. Fancy hand crank zoom. There we go. Make some room. There we go. I understand these figures are going to be reduced and they'll be tiny, teeny, teeny, tiny when they are finally printed, but I wanted to show enough of the mayhem that happens when the correlator ship gets destroyed. But it gets destroyed in like an old Scooby-Doo way, as we saw on a feature page that we already worked on. Hey, Martha, it's good to see you. I meant to send you an email. Thanks for sending me that one pager that you had done, the 1 hour page. It was interesting to look at. Maybe some night we'll do a 1 hour page exercise on the stream and see what we come up with. Ethan just bought his first commission. Let me pull up since there's people talking, I can put up the chat overlay. So. Got your first commission. The artist's name is Brandon Benson, and you paid him to draw Rocket and Groot. Very cool. Your first commission. So welcome to the hobby, I guess. I mean, you've been a comic fan for a long time, so. Oh, maybe I missed one. I'm sorry. Oh, nice. I can do a thumbnail in an hour, like a page thumbnail, but I don't know if we'll see what I can do with a full page in an hour. I'd probably pick like a really easy subject. The establishing shot would need to be thought out. Kind of try to think of it like a low budget movie, like a movie that people like is a movie like Dread, where it takes place in like only a few smaller locations where you could sort of like shorthand the establishing shots, even with different wall textures or different windows or whatever. Like if it's a story that takes place inside of one building or one room or whatever. So I didn't read any of the big two free comic book day issues. I didn't read the Marvel one or the DC one because they limited us only to two free comics at the um, comic book store. And I know that they would have given me some if I had asked, but I didn't. I don't like. I stood in line. I got my two books and called it a day. I don't like being treated differently. Plus, I think I'll be able to get the Marvel DC ones, on the aftermarket, because usually those are the ones that you see the most of. It does take patience, it's true. The initial prompt words were typewriter and NYC. Everything else was my fault. And in this case, I'm drawing more tiny little people than we need, but it's part of just trying to give it scale. If you only show people close up, there's a certain lack of scale. You got to pull back, got to pull the camera back. You think of those beautiful George Perez pages on Crisis of Infinite Earths, where he's just drawing tiny little people for hours. And then Jerry Ordway had to go ink those people, which I think it's harder. I think inking it is harder. Hey, good for you, learning the new technique. Got a handful of people in tonight. Thanks for popping in. I'll show off some more of the stuff I picked up. This was stuff I grabbed at the. I guess we'll do it in order. Let's show off. I traded for this with a local artist. This was a book by Tim Graham, who I met at the show. I traded him some Tick Comics. This was by Mac McLean. They are a local artist, and this was a autobio comic that also had to do with Hellboy, which was pretty cool. So, Friends of Dorothy, that was an interesting one, like a historical story, which was very cool. And then this one was a young person who was very, very excited to share their comic book. And when they said it was about cats meeting hermit crabs, had to give that a try. Haven't read it yet. Yeah, that's this is the sponge on the top of the spongeman's heads. These little things right here, and it's their mind control creatures. I already showed off the sketch I picked up. I found this. I picked up the Phantom Free Comic Book Day issue. Beautiful Greg Smallwood cover. Inside looks good too. So looking forward to reading that. I actually got a big pile of dollar books, and they're all the John Ostrander, Tom Mandrake Firestorm books. They were having a sale, so I got these for 75 cents a piece. Couldn't leave them there, you know. I haven't read them. Love Ostrander Mandrake, and the ones I've read so far have been great. A couple more local comics. Lenovations Press's latest one. That's their cover. Small Bites. This was a horror anthology by local creators. And I think the rest of these were like 75 cents. Or grabbed an issue of ASM, which completes the Alien Costume saga for me. Got the reprint of the first appearance of Aquaman, because I don't have this. I've never read the other stories. I've only ever read the Aquaman story. And then the last big one I got was the last issue of The Simpsons, which I did not pay that, but I've been looking for that. So I got one other thing, and it was too cheap. I don't usually buy this much stuff, but it was too cheap to leave there. And if you know me, you know I like Steve Rude, and this is the Nexus Chronicles. And this was a book that it's signed. You can see it's signed. And this shows original artwork comparing the inked pages and the pencil pages, as you can see, in a large format. Grimjack, yeah, I love Grimjack. Big fan, Tim Truman and Ostrander. But yeah, this was 15 bucks. I couldn't leave it there. And it was marked down from that, so it's 25% off of 15 bucks. So those were all my pickups from the and I highly recommend artists check out Steve Rude's YouTube page. I learn stuff on it all the time. He's a consummate artist. If you read Grimjack, it's the first comics also published Nexus, which was around for a long time. Mike Barron and Steve Rude did that book, and it also has some of the best fill-in issues of all time. Artists like Paul Smith, Mike Mignola, Adam Hughes all did just random fill-in issues of Nexus. Jose Luis Garcia Lopez did a fill-in issue of Nexus. I barely penciled this guy in. Oh, I gotta fill in the blacks of black ink patches. These don't have to be perfect because this is our light source, so we're just, you know. So, yeah, those were my big pickups. Free Comic Book Day, I got there around 11 o'clock, a little before, actually. I got there like 10:30, so I had time to set up, and I sat next to Bob Polio all day, which, for those of you that know Bob Polio, he's been the long art director at NEC, and he's a character, shall we say. But lots of people came in. They were excited to get their free comics. People were excited for. I was surprised the book that went so quick was actually the Gargoyles book, the Disney one. That seemed to be the one that sold out first. I don't know why, but I was glad there was at least one book people were like going crazy for that was not a Marvel DC book. Anytime an indie book gets some of the buzz, I'm happy to see that. Even if it is Dynamite and they're not a small company. Baruchi's built himself a little cottage empire out in Jersey. So that actually reminds me, I have to send someone an email about their books. It was interesting. It was a cool little show. If anybody is, we got the nice Michael DeFonte entrance. Hope you're well, and if not, I hope things get better for you. Not gonna lie, I'm tired. I'm real tired. 2 events over the weekend and then straight into the work week. I just need a day where I don't have to set my alarm. That's what I need. I need a good night's sleep at some point. These marks here that you see, these will all be done with a sponge. That's when you guys have seen on my work enough times where I go in and I dab the sponge, and it makes a nice crackle. I like it because it's a little bit less uniform. It's got a very billowy, organic feel to it, and it works great for smoke. It works well for water. The traditional comic crackle that's just the little blotches. Some people can make that sing. I don't know if it works very well with my drawing. Sometimes you have to use it because that's the texture that's required because of what Kirby established. But when I can go with my own thing. Yeah, I was surprised Gargoyles was the hot one, but not complaining. Like I said, anytime the indie side gets a little bit of the spotlight, I'm happy to see that. Come down here and we'll ink this face so that we ink something other than these little stick figures, right? I'm gonna move my lamp again so we have enough room for the paper. Did you folks all get a chance to go out to Free Comic Book Day? Hit up your local comic store, get some free books, or your local library. Sometimes they have them too. Oh, Martha's, I think I missed one of your comments. So I thought if a new art challenge for myself, every time I get butcher paper in a package, I'm going to cover it with figure studies. Oh, nice. Yeah, I like to do that with the brown paper bags from the grocery store. Those are fun. I actually had a drawing I did on one for sale at the one of the shows this weekend, and everyone kind of laughed at the fact that it said Market Basket on the back. Do I have a favorite part in creating a comic, or just to enjoy the different stages? For me, my favorite part is, I mean, I like the different stages, but I really love that first initial creative burst when you're working on a single page. So, like when you're figuring out the storytelling, that's my favorite part. Because there's so many visual problems to it's just an exciting moment in the creative process. And I've actually started working differently because of that. I want to carry more of that energy. One of the things that is so hard is to maintain that level of energy throughout a longer project. So in some cases I've experimented with just going straight to drawing the page, like do a very, very rough like beat, where I just draw a few boxes like, oh, this is the establishing shot, here's the return, this is the prestige, you know, I'll map out the basic pace, but I won't do the drawing. For this book, I actually did probably the tightest thumbnails I've done for any book, and I think it slowed me down. I think next year, if NEC wants me back, I'll ask if I can go hang out at Quincy with Tom and Doreen. And I haven't been there. I haven't been there in a few years, and they were both instrumental in me, really getting going early on. Tom always put my book on the shelf, like whatever I was working on, and he supports the local creators. Like if anyone brings in a book that they've made, they'll give it a honest chance. But you do have to go there. That is one thing that NEC is old. NEC is old school, old fashioned, however you want to term it. Where phone calls, emails are not the best way. Phone calls and showing up in person count for a lot with those folks. I had somebody ask me like, how did you get NEC to like carry your stuff? And it was pretty simple. Like I was a customer and I knew them, and I just asked them in person a long time ago, and they championed my work from then on. Oh God, yeah. Brian was there. Brian and if Jonathan shows up, they both came to Brockton. So one of the Bob isms from, I'll just call it a Bob ism from Saturday, was he wanted sweet and low for a beverage that he had, and he literally asked like everyone that came in line, um, just to pick up comics, if they had sweet and low, and then he'd pretend it was a joke, but it wasn't a joke because he wanted the sweet and low. I don't know. I think Bob was just having a tough day. I think he was in a bad mood. Oh, Brockton. But we did pick up our banh mi sandwich on the way home. I will say, in Brockton, Massachusetts, there's a couple of fantastic Vietnamese places. So if you like a banh mi sandwich, which I do, it's not a bad place to be. So grabbed one of those on the way home with some fresh rolls. I keep having to push this back because I just don't have the room for you to see the panel I'm working on. But hey, we drew some Undersea Hero characters in Brockton, and we drew some tick characters. And then Hyannis, the next day, I did a deal where if you had a valid library card, I would just do you a free sketch. I ended up doing, I don't know, 5 or 6 of those. Ethan says he had an avocado bacon cheeseburger for lunch today, and he's still full. Yeah, that sounds good. I dig avocado. It's good stuff. May not be a late stream tonight. Like I said, going from 2 events this weekend to just back straight at it, taking it out of me. In this panel, the correlator believes that Colonel Feathers and Jana War have died, so he is lamenting their what didn't actually happen demise. And that's not a spoiler because literally in this panel you see the escape pod that they stole pull right up. So Martha says, I think what I was missing going to digital is the post processing. I was like, these guys' stuff glows and pops and mine doesn't. I don't know what you mean. Do you mean like they actually use like a glow effect, or is it just like? Because really, like when it comes to line art, as long as you're being mindful of your light source, like that's really what causes the pop, and also just like making sure you see it all the way through. That's something I'm guilty of not doing all the time. I'll lose belief in myself and stop drawing at a certain point, or like not want to see it through because I'm worried I'm not going to be able to pull it out. Oh, you mean in the coloring process? I see what you're saying. Color theory is a very important thing to learn. I learned it in college. There is a right and a wrong way to approach color, and it's something that has to do with the way the eye works. It has something to do with a lot of different things, the way colors react to one another. So, like, I would highly recommend seeking out some color theory training, even if it's just like YouTube videos and stuff. Um, I learned it through painting, and I apply that to my comics. And it took help being able to do a better job digitally coloring because I couldn't translate everything I had learned from painting to digital tools until I had somebody really help me. And that person for me was Nate Lovett. And he really showed me a lot of coloring technique and like how you lasso something out and how you make sure that when you're showing something that pops, meaning like you're having it glow or have color coming out of it or whatever, it needs to be set to a darker background, and you need to be worried about your like focusing on the contrast between your foreground and your background elements and what you really want to highlight and make those decisions. So coloring takes studying. It really does. And there's sometimes like I did that cover for our friend Allison on her book. And if you saw it, you saw all this magenta, and you're like, why? And it's so bright. It's like, well, why would you do that? Those warm colors, the way they react with the cool colors when it's printed, that thing's gonna pop off the shelf. Like, and it's gonna when you look at the books it's gonna be next to, which is the other thing I think about. So if you look at mainstream comics, there's a lot of brown, purple, like these mixed ink colors where like when you print And anything that's not cyan, magenta, yellow, or black has like a halftone pattern. So like when that halftone pattern is put up against just a flat ink color, the flat ink color just pops. Now digital printing's a little different, there's some other nuance to it because you're printing with toner and it's basically melted plastic. Yeah, feel free to send it along. I'll take a look at it. Brian, I was glad I was able to deliver some of those stuff from Baltimore to you. It means I have 2 fewer packages I got to ship out this week. There was one other thing I delivered. There's actually another thing I forgot to deliver. I forgot to give it to Jonathan. Was that Warlock sketch cover? That's for him. I gotta get that to him. Yeah, the Baltimore book is really nice, and I meant what I said when I was standing at the merch booth at Baltimore, and I was trying to look at the stuff that would make Bob the least angry and still get him something nice, and I bought him, out of my own pocket. I bought him that mug, that pint glass, that Ben Edlin pint glass, because I thought like, hey, the choices were a shirt, that art book, which was a bunch of tick images by different artists that he wasn't allowed to tell what to do, which I'm sure would just be an endless source of frustration. Oh, I'm glad she likes the Colonel feathers. Yeah, I was happy to draw that for her. Good up and coming artist and a nice person. She is. There, we ink something other than just tiny little stick people. Looks okay. Not perfect, but it'll do. I'm interested to see how these things look when they're colored myself, because I decided to use. Hey, thanks for popping in, Brian. Enjoy your evening with your company. A little water. All right, back to inking these tiny people. Let's clean it up a little bit first. Get the rest of the pencil marks out. There we got this whole batch of sponge men who are getting knocked away from the exploding vessel that we have to ink in. So you can really see that they're kind of just stick figures with a little extra meat on them. So I actually don't even know if these are going to be colored in like full color. They'll probably just be knocked out with one color. This will probably be all orange, and then they'll be done in like a blue. Looks like we're out of focus. Is that better? That looks better. I still have the gag going that the little sponges on top are pantomiming what the rest of the body is doing. Of course, that fell down. Excuse me. Some of this requires some concentrations because of how little I put on the paper. So I'm like more or less drawing at this point instead of really inking. Oops. I forgot to do the other arm here. There we go. These pens are the Faber-Castell ones. You can get them on you can get them on Blick. You can get them at most art supply stores carry them. Even like Michaels usually carries them. Yeah, when drawing tiny stuff, you gotta have a tiny pen. Yeah, I can understand that. There was a point in my career where I really looked at my stuff and I looked at kind of like two different directions I could focus on for my own drawing. Like, obviously, if something asks for reference, I'll use more of it. But for certain things, I'll use reference, and certain things I'll use my imagination because I just think that even though it's harder and it doesn't always look perfect, I think that there's a mystique to the exaggerations that you can get from building a figure with the Loomis method and like the motion and everything and exaggerating. Um, Especially when I was younger, when I would use reference, my drawings would be very stiff. Um, I see artists today who just trace figures, and it's very obvious when they do that. Um, and the drawing looks static almost. Yeah, when it comes to like mechanical stuff, I need reference. But when it comes to generally like a figure moving, I use my imagination the most. And then if there's something I get hung up on, like if the way a knee needs to bend or something, then I'll, you know, grab a picture. But like anytime I have to draw a car, I'm looking at reference. Anytime I'm looking drawing modern interiors for buildings and stuff, there's usually reference involved just because like when I'm making up a room, it's from a certain period in my brain. And you can learn how to draw some things that are kind of timeless, but they look like they're stuck in time. Um, and it may not fit what you're going for. There's this thing with older comics where even when, let's say, before the internet, before Google and stuff was like right in your pocket, where if you didn't have a giant flat file that had tons of magazine clippings and reference photos, like you couldn't just look something up. You'd have to go to the library or whatever. There was a lot more work involved, and thus a lot of people used less reference. And when you look at some of the ways things were made up, um, they looked even further back in time because for some reason the room they remembered that they were drawing, was from 20 years ago or whatever. Cryptids. It's tough to make a Mothman look like a person. I guess it depends on the cryptid. Cryptids seem to be popular. If you dig cryptids, you should check out the Perhaponauts, the Craig Rousseau book that he and Todd DeZigo have done for many years. They have a character named Choopy, who's Chupacabra. They have a Mothman. They have, yeah. I backed the Kickstarter for the cryptids field guide that they did. Michael says getting references that are not AI is getting tougher. I guess it could be. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it depends what you're looking for and where you're looking, I suppose. The animals in the Jungle Book offended people. I thought it was more the imperialism. read Kipling when I was young. I read that stuff when I was a kid. I don't know. I bounced around with a lot of the stuff I read. I read a fair amount of science fiction. I read fantasy. I read poetry classics, all kinds of stuff. I had a lot more time to just read back in the day. Especially like I played sports, but you would have time on buses. You'd have time, waiting for stuff where you could just have pull out a book and read. Again, didn't have phones really at that time. Not ones like today where people are browsing the web or checking out social media or but yeah, if you dig cryptids, I would highly recommend the Perhaponauts. Will there be anything in Undersea Hero that offends people? Probably. I don't know. Probably. I mean, the shell piece has already been said to make people uncomfortable. So, and the trick is, you never point it out. That's the joke. You don't just talk about the. You can't talk about the shell piece. Hey, Patrick. I saw you this weekend too. I saw you at a free comic book day. No, I saw you at Wicked. Did I see you at Wicked? I saw you at Wicked. Yeah. Patrick was at Wicked Comic Con. My mistake. You're usually at Quincy. I've seen you at Quincy before. I don't know. I'm so tired I'm losing my mind, Patrick. I'm sorry. It says Daniel Radcliffe played Rudyard Kipling's son in a memorable masterpiece theater film. Kipling's son Jack went missing in action during the Great War. I did not know that. I didn't know that Daniel Radcliffe played his son. That's right. It was at Wicked. We were hanging out at Jay's table. I haven't read EJ's book yet. I've got that in my pile to read. Looking forward to that. EJ's done a ton of books over the years, and I like her. I like her stuff, and she's cool person. I think the first book I read of hers was Ling Master. I think that was the first one that I read. How many pages do we have left? After this, we have 3. So we got 3. We have 4 asterisks. 3 and change at this point. So And remember, these tiny little figures are going to get shrunk down even more, so people aren't even going to notice. Hey, Caleb, we're getting there. We were just saying 3 and change in line art to go. And I was just talking to my friends that are going to help me with the colors this weekend. And we'll be cooking. Well, they're working on the flats and stuff. I'm going to letter the whole thing. And that'll be great because then I can start sending it to people for previewing and we can get the editorial done. And then I'll pivot back and finish the coloring once we get all the flats in. Or like, if I get done lettering before they do, I'll hey, thanks so much, Ethan. Enjoy karaoke. Yeah, this is a 2-page spread, and these are the little characters that are getting knocked away in the explosion. It's a big, giant shaboom that goes across the whole 2-page spread. This is our mop and bucket that was the stand-in for one of our characters earlier. This is the mop, and then this is the bucket who was pretending to be Colonel Feathers and Janet War. It'll make sense in context, I promise. When I tell people about this stuff, they tend to be like, "Oh God, he's lost his mind finally," which is probably true, but I think we've filled in all the little people. Did we finish the little people on this side? There's this side where we have all these little people. We got a couple left. A couple little people on this side. Patrick says, just found out that feral cats have killed the rodents lurking around Disneyland for 70 years. I believe it. On my island, as I call it, on Nantucket, the feral cats have absolutely decimated the local bird populations of quail and pheasants, and they're an effective animal. Hey, Desiree, good to see you. Did you get out to Free Comic Book Day? Did you pick up some free books and see some things? All of our little people inked. Got the figures inked. Oh, good. Nice. I'm going to have to do some ruler work before we do the sponge work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the other couple of panels that are down here and try to finish these up. Let's see if I can get it to not be blurry. I have to raise it up a little bit. There we go. There's a certain height for the camera that it does best for staying in focus while I'm working. Sometimes I try to zoom in a little bit just because we're drawing those tiny little characters. This needs to be filled out a little bit more. Arthur says, "Got to trap him and fix him, Patrick." I think after this many years, they are adept at evading capture. This is the harbor master. He's a badass dude with a very long mullet. He wears the big aviators, and he's a tough guy, super tough guy. It's funny because part of the reason this character exists is because we always used to joke that the harbor master sounded like this much more intimidating job when it's really just looks like one of your dad's buddies that pulls up in a boat and is like, "Hey, do you have a permit for that?" I wanted to make him like the action hero, over the top character that takes his job really seriously, but really in the end, it's his job is really just making sure you have a permit and you're following the rules and do not being a jerk to anyone else in the harbor. Lots of paperwork. Um, but I just thought it would be cool and funny if he just looked like I don't know, like one of the dudes from Top Gun or back in the day. Like if you walked off a set from like a Predator sequel, not the first one. Definitely not a good Predator. Needs to be a Predator sequel where it's like a bit of a caricature of itself. He's got an H on the front of his swim trunks, and he's got an M on the back of his swim trunks. In case you didn't know, he was the harbor master. But that was the joke. Like to us, that was a funny joke. Because we used to run into the harbor master when I worked for the Mariah Mitchell Association. I worked for the little aquarium on Nantucket for numerous summers, and we would be collecting specimens for the aquarium. And either the wildlife fish and game warden would stop us, or the harbor master would pop over and stop us when we would be collecting stuff to take to the aquarium. But we did, in fact, have the correct permits, so we were allowed to go about our business. And yeah, after a certain point, they knew who we were and knew we had our permits and didn't really bother us. And they were always very nice. It was always a polite exchange. But we would always joke like the harbor master. That's the name of like a action hero type guy. And he wears Crocs. Yes. Yep. Long, glorious mullet. There are some characters in this book that if anyone ever wanted to cosplay as them, it would take some serious guts. But then again, I think the easiest cosplay is just being a spongeman, where you just take like a giant loofah and a couple of ping pong balls, and you just glue it to your head. And I think that would suffice. No worries. Good hanging out with you. Good luck with your drawing tonight. He's got his foot up. He's on the side of the boat like George Washington. Telling you, Harbor Master, next giant American action hero star right there. If there was a Canon Films today, I think he played by like who was the guy that played American Ninja? Michael Dudikoff. Maybe he could still play him. And like we said, the ship explodes, and you'll see like in the eyes of the binoculars, there'll be he'll be seeing the explosion, and he'll be like, "What the heck is that? Get moving!" And then they go head towards it, and that's all you see of the Harbor Master in his first appearance, his first cameo appearance. See, at the end of this book, we solve all the major problems that are set up, like all the major things, and then we introduce a couple of new ideas and a couple of new scenarios, and hopefully, people dig it enough where they'll read another one. I'll feel obligated to do another one. And I was talking about it this weekend. Like, one of the reasons this book has taken so long is because it's a whole mini series in one book. And maybe for the next story, we'll try just putting out a single story. I don't know if it'll be Kickstarter. Maybe we'll just put it out for free digitally, and then we'll see if enough people want it in print, or I'll just put it out myself. Like, I'll just put it out in print myself for a limited quantity. We'll do like a pre-order, and then I'll have it at shows, and that'll be it. I would love to have a print on demand setup, but that's tough to do these days. Who knows? Maybe by then a small press publisher will want to put out the books that are already done. I don't know. I would love to. I'll keep applying for a table space. When the book is done, honestly, what I would like to do a few shows that are not in New England, but we'll see what I get invited to and which ones will accept my applications. I never heard back from Heroes this year. I don't want to do too many shows because I don't want to delay the book any further. So, like, I did these two shows because one of them was a local guy who specifically wanted me to be there, and we'd been messaging back and forth, and this was an opportunity for us to meet and me to support a local library show, which I love to do, and then Free Comic Book Day. Like, I don't know. I decided to do it this year, even though I took last year off, and it was really nice not having to work that day and just going in and having a nice time. Oh, you're applying for mice? Nice, nice. I was actually talking. I was sitting next to somebody who works for Mice, or the company that is one of the management companies that runs the events that they're a part of. And yeah, the application is tough. So if you get in, that's a real achievement. and I really hope you do, Mike. I'm not applying this year, but I believe once Undersea Hero is done, I will apply. I have not done mice in many years. The last time I did mice was, God, I don't even remember. Pre-COVID for sure. The harbor master takes his job very seriously. If he thinks you don't have the right permit, he will take that boat immediately over and demand to see your permit. You can't put a mooring here. This area of the bay is not zoned for moorings. Moorings are supposed to be on the east side of the bay. We'll come up with some fun jokes about just how ridiculous that is. We'll see if I'll send it to the real harbor master that I know. We'll see if he finds it funny. Takes his job super seriously. Probably takes everything super seriously. Probably takes ordering a sandwich super seriously. And actually, near the harbor master on Nantucket, there was a great sandwich place. It's not there anymore, but man, they had fantastic sandwiches. We'll do an episode of this where I just talk about sandwich places and sandwiches that I miss. I think that would be just riveting for people. The Cove Fish Market in Connecticut, no longer there. Amazing. Maybe the best lobster roll in the universe. I really do hope you get in, Michael. That would be a wonderful, wonderful thing. Unfortunately, you'd be welcome to name drop me. I just don't think it would help any. Okay, I know this guy. He likes my stuff. He thinks I'm a okay dude. It's getting there. It's a fun 2-page spread and actually really important. So like, if this ends up going as an original page for one of the people that bought original pages for the Kickstarter. I mean, this is first appearance, first panel appearance of the Harbor Master. I mean, I don't know. I haven't named his little lackey fella there yet. Maybe we'll name him on the stream. Is his name Topher? Or is it something more mundane like Jim? I don't know. He definitely has more than one helper, but he has one helper that is like his right hand man. And he's just riding in like a little 12-foot Boston whaler. Boston whaler is a type of boat. If I ever bought a boat, it's the type of boat I'd want to have because they're basically unsinkable. it's 9:15. I think we'll begin to wrap this up. I can't imagine a publisher that would want to publish this except for me. So, but who knows? Maybe the comic gods will guide us somewhere. I don't know. So many places don't even do creator-owned stuff anymore. And then in others, like the creator-owned deal is such to where it's like, might as well just put it out the way we are. Yeah, I will show off where we are one last time. We inked all those little figures up there. Did some down here. Did the giant lettering. Did a couple more figures. Finished inking that panel. That's a little more there. We inked that panel. And we're off to the races. So I hope everybody has a good night and a good weekend. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me. And yeah, stay healthy, get rested, take care, and happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. And yeah, I hope to see you next week. Good night, everybody.